Smith. This is the Fox Report. It's the bottom of the hour. Time for the top of the news. The drums of war are beating in Israel. The Israelis preparing for what may become a ground invasion in Gaza as fighters on both sides continued exchanging fire today. The situation in this volatile corner of the world growing more fragile by the hour. Already there have been innocent victims on both sides. A rocket killed 3 people today when it slammed into their apartment building in the south of Israel. In the Gaza, officials say the violence has killed 8 civilians, including 4 children and a woman who was pregnant with twins. Actually, that number has grown to 16. A U.S. State Department spokesman puts the blame squarely on the military leadership of Hamas.
It claims to have the best interests of the Palestinian people at heart, but through its actions, it's showing a far different agenda.
He says the responsibility rests with Hamas to stand down and de-escalate this situation. Mike Barrett joins us from Washington. He's a former intelligence officer for the Office of the Secretary of Defense and currently the CEO of D.C. consulting firm Diligent Innovations. Mike, tomorrow the leader of Egypt, which has its own set of problems, is going to meet with Hamas leadership. Is that the best hope here?
Well, yeah, I mean, Egypt is going to be the major player here. I think whatever happens here will be a direct result of what happens with Egypt. There's quite a few of us who saw, the Arab Spring as creating a lot of turmoil and therefore was a reason for concern. And I think this is really, now we're seeing the outgrowth of that. So you've got the Muslim Brotherhood sending their guy. If he can rein in Hamas, then we can probably de-escalate this without too much of a lasting conflict. But the flip side of that is that if they go ahead and break with Israel and sort of violate the accord that they've had with them for several decades now, then this could get really bad really quickly.
It could. Before we get there, though, a ground incursion is possible. Tomorrow, Friday, the holy day, clearly in the Muslim world, the next day could be a big day.
It could, absolutely. In fact, this morning when I got up and I sort of read the overnight news reports, I thought, well, this is just going to be the usual kind of a thing, a little bit of a flare-up, and it'll be okay. But today we saw a lot of very intense activity. You had larger rockets than Hamas generally uses, and they know that those rockets come from Iran. So, again, the Israelis are feeling like, they've had almost 700 rockets this year, 300 or so in the last couple of days, launched into their territory. But what's significant is that the latest rockets, the ones that can target Tel Aviv, are substantially bigger, and they can have guidance packages and things like that, so they can be more accurate. So the evolution here is definitely a worrying trend and a bad thing for the Israelis, because you're going to start seeing bigger and more rocket attacks.
Yeah, I guess most crucial is if Israel does go in to try and quell this with ground troops, then you have to look to see what the others in the region are going to do. And if any of them get involved, what does that mean for us?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the Arab League, I believe, is going to have a meeting tomorrow on Friday as well, and we'll have to see what the leadership comes out with there. Obviously, one of the important things to remember for Americans is that people throughout the region really don't differentiate between the U.S. and Israel. They refer to it as a Zionist conspiracy, the great Satan and the little Satan. And so, we really are going to get caught up in this, whether we chose to try to stay on the sidelines or not. Now, I don't think we're going to do that. I think that the Obama administration and members of Congress from both parties will come out very strongly on the side of Israel with this. But if they do go in on the ground, it could be a lot of body bags. And I think that may really create a challenge in terms of trying to reestablish peace and stability there, and certainly looking towards any kind of a long-term solution. That doesn't look like that's going to happen, anytime soon, and probably not in the next 4 years.
Yeah, Mike Barrett, live in Washington. Mike, thanks very much. Continuing coverage throughout